The NCAA tournament had its first weekend, the round of 64 and round of 32. We're going to tell you all you need to know and all about the draft prospects that showed out in this first weekend and what to look for going forward. Coming up on Locked On NBA Draft.
You are Locked On NBA Draft, your daily podcast on the NBA Draft, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up? Welcome back to Locked On NBA Draft. My name is Richard Stamen. You know me better as @MavsDraft on Twitter, and I'm joined by Leaf Tulane @LeafTulane. He was at the games in San Diego. Leaf, talk to me about what you saw and how great was that experience?
Yeah, it was awesome, man. Especially last night with ending in probably the game of the tournament in Arizona and TCU. Being at that was awesome. You saw some prospects that I think some were mainstream names, like namely Benedict Matherin. Everyone's raving over his 30-point performance, but I saw some guys that I think were a little deeper dives that I'm excited to get into. And really excel on a big stage. And I think if scouts were there, which I'm sure they were, may have had the same impression. So I'm excited to dive into that. And it was awesome to watch some great basketball in the second round. The first round, the 4 games we went to weren't exactly barn burners, but yesterday was exactly as bargained for.
Yeah, the games out there were incredible. I'm wearing a TCU shirt right now. I'm still a little bit hurt. I've been covering TCU now for 5 years, and I really thought this is going to be their year to break out. And I want to issue an apology, speaking of, because we did our brackets last week, and if you listen to me, I am so terribly sorry. Hopefully you didn't, and you were intelligent and just said, hey, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, because if you did that, you're probably in the 80th percentile, because I'm in the 20th percentile in my bracket. I chose Iowa and Illinois in the Final Four, with Iowa winning. And to say the least, that did not happen. Both are gone. Illinois survived 3 more days than Iowa. But how's your bracket looking right now?
I started off really, really well. Day 1, day 2 were good for me. Well, day 1 and day 2, like the morning session, the last 4 games of day 2 did not do well for me. I changed a few. Actually, what's funny is I changed ones that you had correct. Miami, I had all along, and I put at like 10:13 in the morning when 10:15 was the closing time. So I changed it to USC, and then I changed one more that night. And so I went like 0 for 2 that night. And so I fell to like 3rd, and then I regained 1st on the day 3. So the odd number of days are good for me. The evens are not. I'm sitting in like 6th in our big group, but I got a chance. I need Villanova. I need Villanova to beat Arizona. So I was hoping Villanova would win, and they did. And then I was hoping TCU, because I was in the crowd. I was actually in the Arizona section, but I was still chanting Eddie. We were getting after it, and I was hoping TCU could take care of Arizona for our bracket group, see if I could pull out a W.
Yeah, we made a bracket group for Draft Twitter, and anybody really who followed us on Twitter and wanted to be a part of this. Shout out right now to Kendall Pugh, who's a Mavs fan, and I apologize terribly if I just botched your name. But he is currently sitting alone in first place, followed by Locked On Thunder host Rylan Stiles. So that may mean, we have some differing takes between me and Rylan on draft prospects such as Kennedy Chandler. So maybe you want to take his advice over mine. I cannot apologize enough for how wrong I led everybody on this. But let's talk about a little bit more in specific of some of these games. I really do think Iowa losing to Richmond started off the weekend pretty crazy. I didn't win a game really until I think the 1 seed started playing. But, I mean, it's hard to not talk about the obvious. Kentucky and St. Peter's. I mean, the whole St. Peter's run is incredible. Did you watch either of those games? I know it was hard being in San Diego, but talk to me about that, what you saw.
Well, St. Peter's is obviously they're not going to be as athletic as Kentucky, but what I saw is their execution was they weren't rattled by Kentucky's athleticism. I heard JJ Redick talk about how they run really, really advanced stuff, and obviously he's got a better eye than we do for this. But just on like watching the game casually, and while watching other games in day 1, I noticed, wow, they're getting some like tough shots, but they're like getting shots that they need to take to win this game. and they hit the threes they needed. Their execution when they were down 3 late, I think it was 63-60, and they ended up going to overtime at like 67-67. They hit a 3 and then got in the paint and hit a floater to tie the game, and it was all off like some really good action, getting Doug Eddard, their best shooter, coming off pin down through elevator screens. And Kentucky should be able to overwhelm their ball handlers, and their ball handlers and bigs stayed strong and did a great job. And then they beat Murray State, and I was not able to catch as much of that game. But in the parts I did see, I was really impressed with their composure when Murray State was trying to press and get the ball back when they were trailing. And fly, Peacocks, fly.
Yeah, they're the new Cinderella. It's always fun when a team like this comes along. No 15 seed has ever made it past the Sweet 16, so they're at the line. They're that next the next great barrier for a 15 seed. Who knows? I really do think that was a tough matchup for Kentucky. Purdue has had its flaws. I don't know though if Purdue really gives this one up. I feel like this could be their first blowout of the tournament. I really think that's headed towards that way. One other team I wanted to talk matchup, I guess, or no, I'll say team, is Michigan. I mean, they're a team who I thought they didn't even really belong in the tournament. The whole Juwan Howard thing ending the season was weird. They lost in the first round to Indiana. And I was really confused how Indiana got the play-in, but not them. Well, the tournament does this every year. The tournament committee does this every year. We saw it with Syracuse a few years back. We were like, really, them? And then they made a Final Four run. Michigan right now is in the Sweet 16. They took down Tennessee. Now they're getting Villanova. And I don't know if that's going to be the easiest matchup. And one player who I think has really helped this stock, basically from the Colorado State game alone, because he didn't do much versus Tennessee, but Caleb Houston helped them get on a run that put Colorado State out of reach. What did you think of that game and Caleb Houston overall? What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, that was an interesting game. I actually was of the belief that Michigan deserved to be in because they finished the regular season strong. But what I thought about these two games, and I watched both of Michigan's games, I thought that Caleb Houston's shot making, like he made step-in threes and he got a few rebounds and putbacks, but they were so timely against Colorado State. And when they were starting to mount their run to become to take the lead in that game in the early second half, Caleb Houston hit 2 threes. He had a putback early. You saw that his size allows him to get shots over some smaller players. The Colorado State's a really good team, pretty athletic team, but they're just not as tall physically. And he showed that his high release and form were pure in that one. And then Tennessee-Michigan was an awesome game, and I was impressed with the guard play of Michigan where Ken Chandler was excellent in that game. We've actually been fairly critical of him in comparison to Ty Washington, which is obviously a really good prospect, but that's kind of the two we've compared them to. But Michigan's guards were able to score and then get Hunter Dickinson touches, and I thought Houston didn't play great, but Diabate did a good job keeping balls alive if we're talking about Michigan freshmen. And you're right, Villanova's got their hands full because Hunter Dickinson's a load in the post. And if Houston and Diabate and some of these younger guys, along with Eli Brooks, are shooting well, that could be a tough matchup in the Sweet 16. Yeah,
Michigan's going to be a tough out. Come honestly, this whole next weekend with the Sweet 16. I believe the Elite Eight's also this weekend, right?
Yeah, it's
okay. Just make sure
24th and 26th, I think.
Makes sense. Yeah, the timing always confuses me. I just know it goes into April, which still doesn't make sense, but I get it at the same time. So when we come back, we will be talking about a few players more in detail. We're going to go into that Arizona State TCU game and break down some players from there, and then also Keegan Murray. But first, if you're looking to bet on the Sweet 16 and Elite Eight that are happening this weekend, as we just confirmed, look no further than betonline.net. They're the number one source for all your sports betting needs and info, and BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just college basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information needs. So, when football comes back, hockey, NBA, they got it all, as well as your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Our next partner has a product that I have started to use ever since they sent us a sample, and that is Athletic Greens. I hadn't really heard of them before they sent us this sample, but I wanted better health, more energy, more optimized immune system, and I don't want to take pills and vitamins or anything like that. I want a supplement that actually tastes great. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. Excuse me. A lot of words that I'm learning for the first time, that you may be learning it the first time too, and hopefully you can pronounce adaptogens a little bit better than me, to help start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, energy, recovery, focus, and aging, everything. And on top of that, it costs less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. So go ahead, right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially heading into the flu and cold season. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every single day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NBA network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NBA network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. So back on Locked On NBA Draft with Leaf Tulane. Leaf was in San Diego for some of the biggest games of the weekend. He was particularly, again, I'm wearing this TCU shirt. It's Monday. I'm pretty sad. I'm not going to lie. I haven't invested emotionally in this team until yesterday. I've kind of been more objective in trying to cover it. And it was a really special run. I've seen this team go from the bottom where they were continually overlooked. Their student section was empty. And then over the years, Desmond Bane really built this program up, and Mike Miles has continued that. And this year, they made the NCAA tournament for the first time since, I believe, 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. And to me, it was truly special. I thought they had a really good chance to knock off Arizona. I chose it in my bracket. Again, if I chose it in my bracket, it's probably wrong. But we had some pretty strong takeaways about some of the players that are going to be in the draft from this game. There are about 4 we're going to talk about, 2 from each team. I'd say 2 are probably more likely to be drafted than the others, and 2 are kind of deeper cuts. Let's start with Benedict Matherin, because I think Mathurin is the guy who is easiest to target because he's a top 10 prospect. He's going to go first round, lottery, excuse me. It really depends on where in that first round is more than anything. And against TCU, he had 30 points on 8 of 19 shooting, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals. And he's 6'7", wing, really athletic. I think he profiles more than a 3-and-D. What do you think of Benedict Matherin, and what did you see last night that stood out?
Yeah, Mathurin as a general prospect is one of those guys that I've been high on throughout the year. I think when Johnny Davis had his awesome run where he scored 37 on Purdue, a lot of people were taking Johnny Davis over Mathurin, and I kept Mathurin ahead. And I think the reason is his translation to the NBA is seamless. He shoots the ball really well, and like you said, I think he's got potential to be more than just a 3-and-D, and he's got I don't want to say floor, but the just a seamless transition to being a floor of just a 3-and-D. And when you watch him in person, especially last night, you see in the big moments he didn't shy away, and I was really impressed with that shot he hit to tie the game was unbelievable. And the dunk was unbelievable. But what impressed me a lot was his off-ball movement, his finishing, and he came up with loose balls. He had 4 offensive rebounds, and a bunch of them were in critical moments. He was tough. He played at the top of the press, him and Dalen Terry, and they created deflections and turnovers. And it's just hard to build. If you go into a lab and you say I want a 3-and-D wing, you may be able to say I want him to be 6'8", Matherin 6'6", 6'7". But he's pretty much the prototype. He shoots the ball really well. He shot 11 of 12 from the free throw line, I want to say, in that game, maybe 11 of 13. Being there, I wasn't looking at stats, but this is just the general recollection. But yeah, his shot's really good. His defensive awareness is good. His off-ball cutting, which is a lot of Arizona's scheme, is really impressive, and he finishes well. So I came away impressed, but I didn't think his 30 was the loudest 30. I think for instance, Johnny Davis' 37 against Purdue was loud. Mathurin finds a way to play within the team, which is going to be his role in the NBA. And I don't see the stardom associated with a top 5 pick that in Mathurin, I think some people on Twitter are associating with it.
Yeah, he's a tough player. Like I think you said it really well. He's a two-way player with a floor of a 3-and-D guy. I think he can do a little bit more than just shoot and defend. Also, really good cutter, which is a key component for any 3-and-D wing, especially. We saw it last night where he posterized Eddie Lampkin. It was disgusting. Matherin, though, has been hot since February. Over the last 15 games, he scored double digits in every single game. And in that stretch, he's averaging 19.5 points on 45% shooting, 39% from three, 80% from the free throw line. And his passing has really improved. 3 assists a game over that span. He averages 2.5 assists for the year. So, I mean, that's a big improvement over what we saw at the beginning of the year. One of my big concerns for him heading into the season was he needs to improve his passing fundamentals. I really didn't think he was that natural of a passer. And then February and on, he's really clicked. He's made some more advanced reads. He's running some more pick and rolls. It was really impressive. I really like him. I think he's going to be one of those guys where he's not going to fail. You're going to get good return on investment. Are you going to get star upside? Probably not. But, I mean, there's an argument to be made that an elite 3-and-D guy at the worst, like, I mean, if he ends up in that 3-and-D role-playing role, I do think that there is upside to be an all-star. We have seen guys like that flirt with that title, and I do think Matherin is that. Another player that is pretty intriguing is his teammate, and that's Dalen Terry. Dalen Terry is he's unique. He's 6'7", 195, so he's pretty skinny, but he averages 8 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists on 50% shooting, 35% from three, and 73.5% from the line. And I think he's pretty good at defense. What did you like from him last night, and what have you seen all year on Terry?
This is going to sound crazy, but just before Matherin hit that 3 to tie, I think the score was 72-70, so it was 75-72 when he hit the 3 to tie. But I think it was at 72-70. My friend and I were talking during one of the breaks, and we said, I don't feel like Matherin's had that great of a game, despite, I think at that point he was at like 22 points. And I was like, I think Dalen Terry's had just as big an impact with 2 points at the time. Well, Dalen Terry, he had 5 at this point because he had a 3, a huge 3 in the corner. But every big run that Arizona went on in that game, and you could feel it because we were in the Arizona section, and it was loud, and it was a home venue for Arizona in Viejas Arena at San Diego State. Every run that Arizona went on was spearheaded by Dalen Terry providing pressure, steal, throw ahead, Matherin dunk. Dalen Terry pokes the ball away from Miles, turnover, they get a 3. And his impact is so much larger than the numbers. He guarded Mike Miles the entire game. The way him and Koloko stretched out every pick and roll for a point guard of the quality of Mike Miles was unbelievable. He rebounds the ball. He pokes the ball away. He hits the open shot. I really think I would take him this year. I think he's going to come out next year and be a more highly regarded prospect, but I would take him as a storage pick and say, hey, like, at worst, you're going to be a very much plus defender. And yeah, you can put on some weight. Like, his body can put on some weight, but like, that's the least of my concerns. And I think he's one of the best 3-4 defenders in the nation right now. Like, he's 6'7" with a 7-foot wingspan, and his activity level is off the charts in person.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was all defense in the Pac-12. So my pretty good on defense stance goes from very good on defense. And yeah, that game last night was just absolutely locked down. I don't know exactly what Arizona's recruiting class looks like. I know they have Dylan Anderson, who's a center coming in, who's a fringe top 100 guy. But I really feel like if Dalen Terry stays another year, that scoring average can go up from 8 points a game to probably over double. I mean, I really do think the size alone and the slashing ability would help him a lot. If he came out,
Andy plays point guard. Andy plays point guard for them. Yep. They played Justin Kier and Kirk Risa, but he's their point guard.
Yeah, he's so versatile, and he can, like you said, he can guard up very well. That size makes him very intriguing as a prospect. I think he's one of the better, probably rising juniors come next year for the 2023 draft, which continues. Just if he's in that draft gets even stronger. Switching to the TCU side, I've talked about these guys at length. I'll give a quick rundown of why I like Mike Miles and Damion Baugh. Let's start with Mike Miles. You know, he wasn't very efficient this year. Shot under 30% from 3, under 43% from 2, had 38% for the year, but still got 15 points a game, 4 assists, 3.5 rebounds, and forced to steal every game. But and also all Big 12 third team or second team. I can't remember, maybe even first. I know he was on the all Big 12 in some capacity, but I've talked about him at length. I really do buy his overall skill. That even though he had a horribly inefficient night, he was still making TCU so much better. He's what makes them go. And to me, that's a high quality in a point guard. Like no other position needs that more than a point guard. That what can you do when you're not putting the ball in the basket? How can you impact the game? And Mike Miles still impacts the game at a high level. We also saw that in the FIBA U19s. He was teammates with Chet Holmgren, Patrick Baldwin, all those guys, and really made an impact. And on top of that, he's 19 till the summer. So talk to me about what you saw of Mike Miles. You know, I've talked about him just about every single episode I've squeezed him in. What did you like from him?
I liked his composure. The fact that when being defended by Dalen Terry and Christian Coloco on pick and rolls, he was able to take them away from the play and throw passes. He would get into the paint, and even though he's missing some push shots, some floaters, he was able to sit there and kind of just hold off, dribble, and survey. I like the composure. He made all of his free throws, which is a big thing to me. Like if you can make your free throws, I believe that you can make threes. And his passing, his vision's very good. He missed a few bunnies I'm sure he'd like to have back. But Arizona's length is irregular, and that gets you ready for the NBA, and I think he can play in it. But yeah, man, Damion Baugh was who impressed me this weekend. Like Miles was really good, and I think he's the higher profile name, but I think Damion Baugh might be more ready to play in the NBA than Mike Miles initially.
Yeah, I don't know if Damion Baugh ever really consistently plays in the NBA, but at the least he's a pro, whether it's the G League, whether it's in Europe. He could play in a high-level Europe league. I really do believe that. He broke out this year as a junior, transferring in from Memphis, averaging went from 3.5 points per game to 10.5, really upped those assists. He was a combo playmaker next to Mike Miles, really good on defense. I really just don't think he gets enough love. I like I said, I was at every home game but like 3 this year and at TCU, and every single time I watched him, you just come away going, dang, this guy's impact is just ridiculous. And those guys stick one way or another. They're the guys who make teams go as a combo guard. You know, he's impacting game defensively. He has really good handles. He's getting to the line. Can use both hands. His shot, when it falls, is really impactful. What did you like about Damion Baugh in particular? Was it because it's hard when he can't shoot and he's 6'3", but what else stood out for him?
He's always in the right spot. He's always in the right spot offensively and defensively. His passing, Jamie Dixon, first of all, I want to say like that guy's game plan against Seton Hall was phenomenal. His out of timeouts got them layups every time. Against Arizona, they come out and build an 11-2 lead. They're down 8, 68-60 or something, and they come out and execute at an unbelievable level. So props to Jamie Dixon, but I think Damion Baugh was the secondary creator for this team. Like Mike Miles is the point guard, and he's very good at it. But what impressed me maybe more was when the ball was swung and then Arizona had adjusted, Damion Baugh was able to get into the paint, carve out some space, and then dump off to cutters. He hit the threes. Baugh gets to the rim. He's got a really quick first step. And then defensively, his anticipation is elite. Like he gets in passing lanes, he pokes the ball away and creates an transition. And his takes are really strong. Like I understand he's a junior, so it's like less impressive than if a 18-year-old were doing it. But still, like you're going against Christian Coloco, and he puts his body in and puts his whole body into Coloco, and it extends out and flicks up layups, and he's got good finishing ability around the rim. And he did that against Ike Obiagu for Seton Hall as well. So I was just impressed in general with his positional awareness, his creation, and his defensive instincts were really impressive, as well as just kind of basketball IQ. And if he could shoot 75% from the free throw line, which is a big jump because I think he's like 67%. And I don't know what he shoots from three. I'd guess around like high 20s. If he could make that like 34%, if he were to play another year in college, I think he's going to leave though. I really do think he's a late second round pick, and you take a flyer on him and say you can be a really good player in the G League and you might be able to crack our rotation.
Yeah, I agree. All that's attainable, and those are probably the realistic goals. I'm hoping to see him work out and some of the other TCU guys work out this summer. And I want to see how that shot develops. That would be huge for him going pro. So on the other side of this, we're going to take a little bit of a deep dive into Keegan Murray. It's about that time where we start doing these player profiles. We're going to start with my title winner's best team that obviously has no chance to win the title, being eliminated in the third game of the tournament. and that's Keegan Murray. But first, let me tell you about Rock Auto. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. You often endure pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning, and you wait while the person behind the counter orders their parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry. Well, you have a computer and a phone with access to rockauto.com. So save time and money when using Rock Auto, and you can save up to 30%, 50%, or even 100% for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership. Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years, and their prices are reliably low for every single customer. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. So, rounding out the show, we are going to take a deep dive into our first deep dive profile in Keegan Murray of Iowa. This is somebody who, if you have listened to us since we started back in, I've lost track of time, but it was the beginning of the season. He was pretty much here to start the year. Before he came on full time, I had him as the college basketball monthly guest. And he turned me on to Keegan Murray. He was like, hey, this guy on Iowa, he could be a player of the year candidate, and he's really strong. He said all this praise, and I was like, meh, I don't know if I'm that into him. And now here I am having him as a potential top 5 pick on mock drafts. I have him number 7 right now. Could see him climbing on my board. Talk to me about what you like about Keegan Murray, and let's start on the strengths of what you've really seen from him and what you think will translate to the NBA.
What I think will translate is his defense. I think that's the easiest thing that'll translate is he's an elite defender. He can guard 1 through 5 pretty well at the college level. I'm not saying you want him to be guarding your 5-man and you want him to be guarding your 1, but he can. And I think 2 through 4 is very comfortable for him. And then I think the biggest knock about him initially was, can he shoot? Well, he shot 41% from 3 this season. In some of these games in the Big Ten tournament against Indiana, he went 8 of 10 from 3. He can shoot the ball now, and he's got a very fundamental game. I think the greatest thing about him in an NBA roster is that you don't have to go to him for him to score. You saw that for him as a freshman, playing with Luka Garza, Joe Wieskamp, Jordan Bohannon. He was like the 4th option, maybe 5th option on that team, and yet he had really impactful games where he was a cutter. He finished strong. He makes his free throws. He does everything right defensively. He gets blocks on the weak side. He can be a rim protector, secondary rim protector, and he added isolation to his game. And so a lot of people that we talk about were like, their projection is a 3-and-D. They're only a role player. He's a role player extraordinaire. And then he has isolation skills that he developed after the fact of being an excellent role player. I don't know if I want to compare him to Mikal Bridges, but I think the body type and the way he can play defense, he's not quite as slithery as Mikal Bridges, but his role can be 3-and-D, step in right away, and his defense will be a little different because he'll be more of a rim protector, maybe a Jaden McDaniels type, the way he defends, as opposed to Bridges being the perimeter guy. But he's a better shooter than McDaniels. He's older, though. He's older than McDaniels, and he's a more refined scorer, even though McDaniels was a lottery-type talent. And so I think there's something to be said for his isolation creation and then just how well he will play any role seamlessly. And I think a team to watch for taking Murray is the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah, the Grizzlies have that. Who's the pick they have? They have somebody's pick because they have a ton of them coming in. I know they have 2 in the late first, but I really do think they could package up and move in to get him because he would be such a great fit. You said Mikal Bridges, 2 names that I've had on my scouting report for him that have stood out. One is Marcus Morris, plays very similarly to him. And then I'm going to steal this from my boy Simon at Hawks Draft Nerd. He threw it out perfectly, and I can't unsee this, which is Danny Granger. They're both the same size, 6'8", roughly. A little bit of the same play style. Danny Granger also averaged 26 points per game at one point in Indiana, was an all-star elite scorer, I would say, for his window when he was healthy. A little bit of a difference, though. I mean, like you said, the defense is just unreal. He had 2 games less, I believe, this season than Walker Kessler in recording a block, and that's ridiculous. When you think of Walker Kessler as probably the best shot blocker in the country, all things considered, to be in that company is pretty ridiculous as a defender. He has great lateral quickness. He's shut down Johnny Davis a couple times. He's been tested in the Big Ten. He's really good in quick offense. I think his game scales up very easily because of that, because the NBA is so quick. And on top of that, he's a 3-level scorer. I think he can shoot from mid-range very easily. He can pull up from 3, and he can finish at the rim. Another thing that's really special to me is just the ability to cut and be a pick and roll man while also being a playmaker and running some pick and roll himself. There's so many strong things you could say about his game. And one last one before we go into weaknesses is just the ability, the turnover usage, or the turnover to usage ratio, I should say. He has a 30% usage rate, which is really high. That's star level usage. He's the one-man show at times on that team, or I should say the man, the alpha, and he's averaging 1 turnover a game. Like that is ridiculous. You look at the amount of time someone else has the ball in their hands on these other teams where they're the stars, and nobody is even coming close to that. And on top of that, a lot of bigs get ripped, especially when they go to the post. Keegan Murray doesn't have that. So none of these turnover issues apply to him. But let's talk about some of the weaknesses. I'll let you kick this off. What are some areas of concern for you about Keegan Murray at the next level?
If you were to put him in a situation where he's like a designated scorer, which is why I said like the Grizzlies would be an ideal fit, because he doesn't have to be, and he can just play the amazing role player, is I don't think he's got unbelievable explosion. He's a very much plus athlete, but his is very like fundamental and functional athleticism as opposed to just like jump out of the gym, like measure unbelievably in terms of like testing. I don't find that to be a terrible weakness at all. I mean, we're trying to nitpick a player who's going to be a top 10 pick. I do think that his shot needs to be a little quicker. He has a high release, but in the NBA, it's a little different than the Big Ten. The Big Ten is one of the slower, like pack it in defensive conferences, and I think that allows him to get more space to shoot. And obviously, that it's still impressive shooting 40% from 3. But I think if he's going to excel as a 3-and-D in the NBA, he needs to get a little quicker release. And I think that's really my main one. I think there's something he could work on in terms of facilitating, but that's not really the role he'll be doing, because like he's a fundamental passer. He doesn't turn it over much, but he's not like Mathurin. We talked about Matherin's plus upside coming off picks and throwing lobs to Koloko. That's not really Iowa's offense, but Murray wasn't necessarily a great facilitator, but a nitpicking, and I don't think that's going to be his role, so I don't really have a big issue with it. What about you?
Yeah, exactly. Like some of the concerns just really don't apply to him that much because of what you're asking him to do. If you're evaluating him like how do you build the greatest basketball player ever, yeah, you're going to have some issues with the playmaking, but kind of like you said, evaluating within the role, it really does favor what Murray does. For me, some of the concerns, I'll just address the elephant in the room. He'll be 22 before training camp. He's a sophomore. He's old for his class. I get it. Age to me, though, I care more about the sophomore status, playing 2 years of this competition than the actual number. I think that number can be twisted a lot, and sometimes that number is relative. 19-year-old who's ahead in his year and 19 behind in his year are two different things, and there's a lot of context that goes into it. So that is a clear elephant in the room. That's a big reason why he's not going higher on mocks or big boards. He's also a little bit of a tweener. I don't know if he's a small forward or power forward. I also don't know how much that actually matters, but I don't know exactly which position, quote unquote, you roll him out on. And then lastly, great on defense, two things. I say lastly, but two last things. Great on defense overall. The one minor nitpicking thing is his recovery ability is a little bit subpar. I would say it's like slightly below average. But, overall, I don't think it's going to be a fatal flaw to him. It's just going to be what separates him from being a great defender and a good defender. And then now, actually, lastly, coming down to his three-point shots, you talked about how he does have some work to do on threes. The movement threes is something that I see as a major improvement for him. He being able to do that would separate him. I think that would put him into top 5 in this class discussions. So those are my strengths and weaknesses. To cap it off, what is the highest you would be comfortable taking Keegan Murray in a mock just off the top of your head? Because mine personally is number 5. I'm curious where you're at.
I think I'd go 6, but I could make an argument for 5. But we're in the same boat. I mean, the age is the slight deterrent for 5, because like you could look at a guy like AJ Griffin, But I think there's a huge delineation, and I was having this exact discussion last night. I think there's an enormous delineation between 4th pick and 5th pick. Like whoever's got 5 after the ping pong balls decide it is going to be really disappointed, and I think they're going to try to trade down. And that's not a knock on AJ Griffin, Benedict Matherin, Keegan Murray. If people fall in love with Hardy or Jovic or any of these guys that we will talk about soon, I just think that there's such a delineation from tier 1 to tier 2. And so I could make an argument for 5. I'd probably go with 6 just because 22 is a lot different than 18 to me. But I love Keegan Murray. As you know, I was high on him all year before this year. And the fact that he shot 40% from 3 stunned me. Like I told you, I was like, oh, if this guy can like shoot 30%, like he's a draft NBA player. And you were kind of like laughing at me, like, and I think this is off camera. Well, I didn't, and this is no credit to me, but I didn't see 40% coming at all, and now he's made himself into a lottery guy. So yeah, I can see top 6 pick, and I think if Memphis gets a hold of him, watch out.
Yeah, and I think that I agree with you. Actually, that's kind of why I have him 5. Same logic as to why I have him 5, just different conclusion. And I hate the term X-Man draft, not X-Men draft. I realized I probably could have used a different term there. No mutants in this draft, but
I wish.
yeah, might have some special basketball players to say the least. But I'm not a fan of when people say like, oh, it's a 2-man draft, because that horribly discounts like the depth. Like every year we're finding someone 30 to 45 that contributes at a borderline starter all-star level. It's not that uncommon. So I hate that phrase, but at the top of the draft, there's a very clear line of who teams value, and that goes in any order: Jabari Smith, Paolo, Chet, and Jaden Ivey. After that, it's a crapshoot. And that's why I say Keegan Murray at 5. But I do ultimately agree. We're going to be doing more of these deep dives as the draft season approaches. As we're recording this, we're 94 days. So when it drops, 93 days from the draft, which is actually, if I'm not mistaken, today, 2 days on Wednesday is 3 months to the date from the draft. So we will keep it coming. We're going to do more of these deep dives where we do the strengths, weaknesses, talk about some player comparisons, and then also, mock draft stuff, big boards, all of that. But thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day on this Tuesday. Leaf, you got anything for us before we go?
Enjoy some more March Madness, and then put on some Keegan Murray film if you're lacking for basketball until Thursday.
Yeah, there's a lot of content on YouTube if you don't have Synergy. If you have Synergy, you can download the full games. It's a really good investment if you're a fan of the NBA draft. But thank you so much for making Locked On NBA Draft again your first listen of the day. And for your second listen, go ahead over to Locked On NBA. Thank you, and we will see you next week.